freestyle, something to feed your soul in the meanwhile. This is just a freestyle. If you riding with me, holla. Call me the Michael Wright and pick one, I'm not excited. Been enlightened, it'll be put pressure, not to recite it. Witnessing the movement, all I welcome, few are invited. Opposition blowing loud, strategists moving silence. Pride to make you choke, but humility do the Heimlich. Comes from my inner sanctum, you're at liberty to rewind it. Riches is ever fading if the adversary behind it. About as fake as the news of Stevie Wonder not being blinded. Blessings happen with time.
One thing that's interesting is that people envy your position when they don't understand your story. I didn't just get here by accident. It's not by happenstance. I had to grow. I had to experience life. I had to go through struggles and hardships that probably would have drove most people crazy. Almost drove me crazy, literally. But through it all, I held on to Christ. I learned how to trust the process.
Thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for all of the words that have gone forth, all of the music that have gone forth, Lord God. But we want to give you permission to use us, Lord God, like never before. We want to give you permission, Lord God, to come in and reign, Lord God. Allow people to see you through us, Father God. Not so we can get glorification, but so you can get all the glory, all the praise, Lord God, that you rightfully deserve. And these things we ask in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. This is what God told me to do. I need every minister to come up here real quick. We are called to be the head, and we are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. But we are so fixated on position and where we sit in church that we are missing the point. Who wears size small? This is for a lady. That shirt says, beautiful you are. What's your name? Your name what? Zaria? Let's give it up for Zaria, y'all.
DH and the Next Level Band has been in existence now for about a good 6 years, I believe, about 6-7 years. The reason why I started the band was I wanted to be different. I've always been a lover of bands. Anybody that knows me know I'm a huge Parliament Funkadelic fan. And I just enjoyed the energy that I would see as an audience member, watching them, watching the Ohio players, watching Zapp and Roger, watching the Isley Brothers. I would study these bands and the music and the emotion that it would cause the audience to feel. And so when I knew that I was called to do the kind of music that I do, I said, I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. CDs and all of that, that's cool. Getting up, singing the CDs, singing the tracks, that's fine. Even getting a DJ, there's nothing wrong, because that's actually one of the fundamental elements of hip hop music, right? So that is something that is very important. On top of that understanding, I also said, you know what? I don't have a DJ. I don't want to be going up there. I've seen horrible situations where people will go up on stage and the CD will skip. And then you've seen it where people will be like, oh, hey, start that over. Bruh, I'd rather do it a cappella. Nah, man, that's not professional. That's not something that I would consider being done in excellence. So I said, what else can I do that would be different, but it would still help me to get this message across? And I was like, you know what? Start this band, you know what I mean? And initially when I started the band, I wasn't rapping and playing bass simultaneously. I was just rapping, because the first version of our band was me, my brother JT, Ed Taylor Jr., Chris, a kid named Jake, who is the closest thing to Jimi Hendrix that I ever heard, and I met him when he was 16. He was just doing amazing stuff with that guitar. And my cousin, Paul Bracey, who is one of my favorite bass players ever in life, he was actually the bass player. And every once in a while, I would pick up the bass and do solos and things like that. But I was more so focused on the lyrics. And it took time for people to kind of catch hold of it and really start enjoying it, because it was so different. There weren't many people in Milwaukee doing it. I was one of the first people to do it. I've seen other people do it afterwards, but we were one of the first to do it.
Run through everything. I'm tired, man.
I came stuck. Cassandra made me 2 plates.
And I'm eating cashews. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Play for you.
That's all you had?
Yeah, man. Came straight from work, didn't get a chance. But that's neither here nor there.
All I had was some catfish, macaroni and cheese.
You too, man. You just gonna let that petty spirit come over?
Homemade
Y'all see how they do me, like? You see how they, look, he's gonna start to. I feel it.
I mean, that's all
Mike's
I had.
gonna go too. What did you have, Mike? So from the top, man. Come on.
Well, I want the catfish. Daddy ass mac and cheese. Great.
Yeah, man. All right, y'all. Come on, let's do this one more time. We're running all the way through and then we good.
All right, cool.
Bruce Furlow. I am the keyboard player for DH and the Next Level Band. I play mains, accessories, key bass, put tracks together when the band needs it. And wherever I fit in, that's what I try to do for the band, for my brothers.
My name is Michael Kelly. I'm the guitar and bass player for DH and the Next Level Band.
Mike used to play bass at a church where my brother was the drummer and he was the he was the bass player.
So y'all go way back.
So I would sit there as a kid like, dude, he is killing every Sunday. Without fail, the dude with the pink bass is gonna kill. No matter what, I don't care. Nobody else doing.
He had a pink bass?
He had a pink bass. Was it like pink, right?
No, it was.
What kind? It was a PV. I remember.
It was a PV, yeah.
Yeah,
it was PV.
Yeah. As a kid, though, in my mind, it was pink.
It was glowing.
Hey, but I know the gloves was black. I know that for sure. And like I grew up, he was one of the bass players that influenced me to play. So for us to be in the same band is definitely, it's an honor and a privilege, man.
My name is Chris Finley Jr. and I am the MD and drummer of DH and the Next Level Band. I have been with the band since about 2011 or 2012. I'm the youngest, yet the oldest member of the band.
You're the youngest with the most seniority, okay.
Yeah, even though I'm the MD, we're a family. I don't look at myself as like over anybody in the band. We're a family. We're all brothers. And one thing that I love the most about us is that when we come together, man, we've had some rehearsals where we didn't even get to practice because we were spending time in the presence of God. Seriously, and I'm talking about the presence of God felt heavy, or we had talks about, we were just talking about the Bible, and again, like I said, the presence of God came in, and it was just wonderful, man.
You guys did an excellent job. Thank you for putting in all the hard work to get everything finalized. Thank you, Chris, for adding that piece. That instrumental piece is gonna be dope.
Yeah. The intro's gonna be next.
Yeah, they not expecting that.
I'm not expecting. I gotta play it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because I think people are so accustomed to the other intro that we have that's gonna be something new that we can add to the lineup. Yeah, my neighborhood is very important to me. I learned a lot about life, you know, being from Highland Avenue, growing up on Juno, man. I learned a lot. I saw a lot, you know. One thing that I would say that has influenced me the most that I saw in my community is diversity. It wasn't predominantly African American. Some of my closest friends growing up were Mexican and Puerto Rican and Asian, you know what I mean? And we all lived in the same vicinity. You know, my next door neighbor, her name was Miss Evelyn, and she was like a grandmother figure to me, but she was of Polish descent. We never really looked at it any different as far as ethnicity and color is concerned. It wasn't until we went out into the world that we were called racial slurs that made us think about who we were as kids. Because in my neighborhood, it wasn't like that. If you showed love, you got love. If you did dumb stuff, you was gonna be corrected by somebody in the community. You know, you was held accountable for your actions. You were held responsible for the things you did. And you were shown love for showing love to your other neighbors. But I think the most important thing that I learned how to do was I learned how to live. I learned how to survive. I learned how to appreciate life because not everybody that came from my neighborhood is still around. You know, I got partners that's doing life that will never see the light of day. You know what I mean? And it's a sobering reality when you sit down and you actually think about everything that God pulled you from. You know, I got friends that were killed before they even turned 21, you know, and it's a sad reality that a lot of young people have to deal with. And I think for me personally, the principles and the things that I learned from that neighborhood, in conjunction with the things that I learned from a spiritual background, were the very things that helped me to be grounded, to remain humble, and to remain appreciative. But in this yellow and white house, that's where I met like my street mentor. He was one of the founding members of what is considered one of the most treacherous gangs in Milwaukee, called the Ghetto Boys. And that's where I met him at. Then over that way, you got the Cherry Street Mob, which is probably not the best. If you want to go get some weed or something, then that's cool. But if you was going over there with like problems, that's probably not the brightest thing to do. Yeah. So we were separated like by blocks, and the only thing that really brought us together was playing basketball at the school over there.
Oh, wow.
27th Street School. Either we played at 27th Street School or we played at a park right up the street called Tiffin Tyler. But that's the thing that brought our neighborhood together. A lot of times was playing basketball over here. And of course, everybody want to be Jordan, and cats was terrible. 27th Street Park was lit, man. Yep. At any given time, you could see people pulling up in nice cars and parking them right there on the court.
Oh, they park on the court.
Yeah, man. Yep. Pulling up, doing donuts in there, man. Cats putting, money on, basketball games, and you fight with somebody 1 minute, because they fouled you too hard. You
Right.
boxing with them, and then right after the game, you go around the corner to the Red Bell store, get a drink, get a blunt, you forget it even happened, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not like that now, man. Cats be so quick to shoot each other, not even, really building a rapport with each other, not knowing that this really this your brother, you know what I'm saying? A lot of good memories here, man. Yep, 27th Street. I can remember, man, running from the police over here. Because the thing about the police is they know general, areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not too many of them know, the back streets. So, if you got a little bit of an edge, just a little bit, and you hit one of them back streets, you straight. You straight. They have no clue what's going on. They have no clue what's going on at all, man. I guess in retrospect, I don't think I would be who I am if I didn't have some of the experiences that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But as a kid, you don't think it's not that bad. This is where I live at. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't trade these experiences that I've had for nothing, man. Nothing in the world. No amount of money. This right here is Urban Day School. This is the school that I went to from Head Start all the way to 8th grade. And I can remember every one of my teachers from Head Start to 8th grade. But I would say the ones that affected my life the most were Mr. Anthony Reddit, my 4th grade teacher, my 4th and 6th grade teacher, Mr. Eddie Jones, he was my 1st grade teacher, Miss Boyd, she was a Caucasian woman who wasn't really Caucasian. She was like black Caucasian, kind of. I had a crush on her. She was my Head Start teacher. And then Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore is the son of Alvis Moore, who sang in a group called the Esquires, and they were one of the first groups in Milwaukee. They were like a doo-wop group to win a Grammy. And I remember sitting in Mr. Moore's music room in music class one day, and he was telling me about his dad. He said, "Yeah, I got a Grammy, at my dad's house." I was like, "What?" Like, whatever, man. He jacking real good. He brings it to the music class the next day, and he passes it around to the students. And he passed it to me, and he was like, "Daniel, you say you like music. What do you think about this?" I said, "I'm gonna get 10 of these, man. I'm gonna have 10 of these." I knew from a very early age, man, that I had a natural gift for music. I always knew that. Always knew. The thing that I loved the most was that this was a community. Everybody had each other's back for the most part. I would say, I really understood the principles of friendship and what family meant, because a lot of my family in town I couldn't see on a consistent basis for various reasons. My dad's family really stayed, his side of the family stayed in Chicago. My mom's side of the family stayed in South Bend, Indiana, and Michigan. So the only two communities that we really had was our school family and our church family. You know what I'm saying? So when I came here, it was like, to the outside person, Miss King was just the lunch lady, but to me, that was like my auntie that got on my nerves all the time. Like, dude, she is tripping. She is tripping. What you mean you don't got no more corn? You are tripping. Like, Mr. Reddit was like another father figure. And one thing that I can say that I learned from Head Start all the way to 8th grade was the teachers here, whether white or black, made sure that we knew the challenges that we would face as African American children in this society. They made sure that we were well aware of our African American culture. They made sure that we were aware of where we came from, so that nobody could take that information away from us, man. If you line up anybody that went to Urban Day at any point in time, they will be able to tell you every single verse of the Black National Anthem. They'll be able to sing Black Butterfly to you. All of this stuff it was just like, it was a part of our program to make sure that it was embedded in us that we were just as important as anybody else. We weren't better, we were just different. You know what I'm saying? And so when that's being taught in a school and then you go home and that's being reinforced, you know what I'm saying? It helps you to become a very well-rounded person. Some of my best friends, still to this day, you know, we would fight on the basketball court, or, you know, fight on the basketball court at Tiff and Tyler. Then the next day, you know, we helping each other with our homework, or, you know, it was a real family, man. I learned a lot here. I learned a lot. And I'm grateful that my mother fought for us to be in this school. This is a private school, actually. And I hated wearing uniforms, man. Oh, man. Navy blue pants and white shirts. And to this day, blue is my favorite color, whatever. Sometimes when, and this is just me, I've never shared this with nobody before, but sometimes when I feel like I'm getting kind of like lost in the, I guess, lost in the obligation of like ministry, music ministry particularly, when I feel like I'm getting lost in, oh, DH, you code, and you this, and you that, you know, I tend to come and just walk through here, man. Because for me, when I walk through here, I remember the days when I didn't have nothing, you know what I'm saying? I remember the days before when I would be standing on these street corners like battle rapping, you know what I'm saying? I remember being on these corners like not having nothing in my pockets, you know what I'm saying? But knowing inside that I was here for a reason, I didn't fully understand what that reason was. So when I get to that point where people trying to give me these accolades and all this praise and all of that, man, I come walking through here and they wipe all of that away. Yep. Right here, these stores played a big part in my childhood too. Red Bell, and then right here was one called Food Liner. The crazy thing is that these stores were pretty much in competition, but they were owned by two brothers. Fat Joe owned that one. You come in there, it reek of cigars. He's sitting there smoking the fattest cigars on earth. Like, what are you doing? And we thought he was crazy because it's like, you ain't got no weed in there? Like, it's just cigars. You tripping. And then it was the other brother, Neil. And Neil they were both of Arabic descent, but Neil was more like black. Had a ponytail, smooth, you know what I'm saying? Women love Neil. And at points when I would be running from like the cops or something around here from doing something, Neil will let me sneak in the back door. They'll come in there, have you seen this young? No, I never seen him. Ooh, that guy, he looks like everybody else. I don't know. But he had a really good relationship with my parents, you know what I'm saying? And that was the thing back then, is that like everybody was a part of a community back here, you know what I'm saying? And his sons, as I got older, I saw that his sons, who were the ones that used to be sweeping up in the stores and taking out the garbage, they actually handed that family business over to them. Now they own, the sons own, I think they own Onyx Nightclub. They own this Chicken Shack right here, and then they own the laundromat around the corner. So for me, I had examples of what it was to look up to Doughboys, and then I also saw which I didn't realize then, but what I saw was generational wealth because of Fat Joe and because of Sam and because of Neil. Like, they gave us a different example of what could happen. And it's sad because I wasn't seeing a lot of that within my own ethnic group, but I was observant enough, because being around here, you gotta be observant. Being from over here, you gotta be observant. I was observant enough to soak up game and look at it like, man, you could do multiple businesses, then pass them off to your family. You know, I didn't really understand what that generational wealth was like until I would come over here and talk to Joe and talk to Sam. And, you know, I think when I knew that Neil, God bless the dead, when I knew Neil had a little bit of bread was, he was getting ready to start buying houses on my block where my mama and daddy stayed. And I'm like, man, he sell chips, don't he? Like, he sell chips and cigarettes. But I'm like, wait a minute, he finna buy at least 2 or 3 houses on one block. He must be doing something right. Then that's when I started thinking more business-minded, even then, from the example that I saw through Neil and Joe. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, those two brothers made an impact in my life as well, man. Tiffin Tyler is a park that plays a significant role in my neighborhood that I grew up in. We would meet there to play basketball. We would meet there for community events. Every year they had summer events throughout the days, different things that kids could do just to kind of keep us out of trouble. And that's what's missing in a lot of communities. A lot of young people don't have things to do. But at Tiffin Tyler Park, there was always something going on. We would go swimming. We would be a part of the basketball community tournaments, you know. It was a beautiful place for us to be and meet up. And some days it was better than others, you know. As we were growing up, the neighborhood began to change and drugs became more prevalent. So Tiffin Tyler at one point also became a place where drug transactions would happen, where you would hear gunshots randomly, you know what I'm saying? And then that became a normal thing. But initially it wasn't like that, you know. The soccer field over there, that's where we practice. I actually played soccer for Urban Day, the school that I grew up in. We were terrible, it didn't matter. Absolutely horrible. I don't think we won a game in 3 years, besides the point. But we were there. Tiffin Tyler played a very important part, man, in my life. You know, for recess from school at Urban Day, we would go across the street and, I mean, just had a ball, man. Learned a lot about science and learned a lot about nature and growth, not even realizing that some of those same growth experiences that we would find in nature or walking around as kids in Tiffin Tyler, we would also experience a similar kind of growth within ourselves, man. You know, it's good to see where it's at now, more community-based, getting back to the essence of it. I think that's important. That's important for that neighborhood, for my neighborhood, you know what I'm saying? Right down the street was a Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army also played an important part because that's where my mother had made the decision to put all of me and my siblings into martial arts as young kids. I didn't like fighting as a kid. It took me like getting older to really kind of know how to put them things together, you know what I'm saying? But as a kid, man, I didn't like fighting. I was getting picked on a lot. That's why I think that was a big reason why my mother put us in martial arts at the Salvation Army by Tiffin Tyler, because, you know, kids were calling me fat and they was messing with me because I didn't have the right kind of clothes and, you know, all kinds of reasons, man. And I just never would say anything. I just never let it bother me. But then when it started to get to the point where I was getting picked on physically, I never wanted to fight back. But being in that martial arts class taught me a lot of discipline. It taught me a lot of structure. It also taught me to go with my first mind. And why do I say that? Because I had a teacher named Mr. Jones in my first grade class who I thought in my first mind was a little crazy, right? Follow me. No, it was a little crazy. So I would go to school, be terrified of him. He always talked about these belts he had, Terminator 1, 2, and 3. It was a whole thing, man. He was very Joe Clark-ish, off Lean on Me. Go look it up if you don't know what it is, right? And I had to deal with this every day. Every day, he would terrify kids. My mom put us in this martial arts class, and who's the first person that I see when I go in this class? Mr. Jones, breaking wood 2x4s, man. See, he nuts, all the way crazy. I know it. So I learned to follow my first mind, going to martial arts. Even to this day, when I see him, he still bow and all that. Then I bow back, like, all right, cool, all right. But I learned a lot, man, and still a lot of those principles I carry with me to this day, you know. I wholeheartedly believe that if we were to get everybody that has ever known me from childhood up until the time I went to prison, and you put them in a room, right? You ask them, how many of you think that DH will be running several successful brands independently in 2019? Raise your hand. Outside of my mom, man, it just didn't look like that was gonna be the case. If you were to ask those same group of people, do you think that he will ever be successful as an independent music artist? Success being the metrics that you kind of create. How many of you think that he will be successful and travel the world or travel the country doing what he does, and also have a team of people that he travels with, and you never hear any financial like rumblings or anything, no people being disgruntled or anything? Raise your hands. People wouldn't have their hands raised because very much like an anomaly, you know what I'm saying? And I think the more I grew as a person and the more I grew as an artist, I stopped really caring about 99% of people's opinion. I don't think they know how much I don't care. I try to tell them, but I don't think they listen very much. But that 1% are the people that I believe in, the people that believe in me, and the people that have shown themselves to be genuine.
Blessing me now, you can move around. You don't like the way God is blessing me, you can move around. Right. You can move around. You can move around. Was like a wrist, but I wore it, and I sing by that phone, by that bank. In every level you elevate, every beat you talk and get folded like origami. Strives stem from a sharper mind, no compromise. It's all divine, was all designed by the same Savior who made the water wine.
My boy said, trust the process, I'm just paving the way, building up my credit score so that my children be straight. Slash.
Very proud of him, man. We came a long way, definitely. All right, let's go back into holding on.
Alright.
Yep. For me, what I do is I write at home. I write at home, or I write wherever, but I prefer to write at home. Sometimes things come to me at random times, and I'll have like a small notebook in my pocket, and I'll write down ideas and concepts. But when I get home, I can actually refine it, cut off all the technology, cut off the computer, cut off my phone. Hey, if I cut off my phone and you have an emergency, 911 is readily available. Okay. Or even better, you can hit Jesus on the main line and you can tell him what you want. Okay. But when I'm in that mode, man, I try to block everything out so I can really be at one with God and I could be at one with what I'm trying to say through my lyrics. And what I do is I rehearse. Once I have everything situated, I not only do a voice note of what I've recorded, like the whole verse or the whole song or the whole hook or everything all together. I do voice notes of everything, and then I rehearse it until I get sick of it. So that way, when I come into the lab, I'm not wasting money by just standing around trying to write stuff while I'm here. That's the difference between practice and rehearsal. Practice is what you do at home. Rehearsal is what you do either when you're in the booth or when you come together with other composers, producers, and writers. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to make sure that everything is formulated properly. So that way when you get to this point, you're not fumbling over words. I still fumble over my words every once in a while, but I know how to kind of maneuver through it and remember enough, okay, this is what I meant to say. This is how I meant to say it. So that's my process of how I record. Because the first half seems a little bit lower, the volume seems a little bit lower.
Yeah, it's gonna need some sort of blending. Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Yeah. We're gonna do this song called Holding On. Holding On is actually the intro to Trust the Process Volume 1. And the reason why I chose this one as the intro is because, you know, I was going through a lot of things that people weren't aware of. Like I was going through a lot of depression and battling through like suicidal thoughts, man, just from dealing with the grief of like losing so many loved ones, like back to back to back. I wasn't exactly sure how to process it because when you grieve, when I was grieving one, it was like another one would happen like right behind that. The suicidal thoughts came from, you know, really understanding that a lot of people, when you're getting called to do stuff, especially when it comes to music, people will call you all the time, especially when you got something on the radio and it's hot and, you know, your name is popping through the city, people will call you all the time. But it's very rare that somebody will call you and be like, hey man, how you doing? And I was going through that and I wasn't exactly sure how to maneuver through that, you know what I'm saying? I had to go through a weeding process of friends and people and who's really here for me, and that whole thing really took a toll on me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, because I had gained a lot of weight from being in that place of depression. The heaviest I was like 312 pounds, man. I gained a lot of weight. And so then you have to deal with the insecurity of that. Then it's like, man, I got to do better. But this is the only thing bringing me comfort is food right now. So it was a real addiction, man. I just kept telling myself, I got to get up. I got to get up from here. I have to remember why I'm here. Like I'm here for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And one of the ways that I was able to navigate through that process was through writing. Writing was very instrumental for me coming out of that dark place. And I'm definitely in a better place now. I have so much peace now. And the peace that surpasses all understanding, which will guard your heart and mind through Christ Jesus, is priceless, man. So I'm just going to lay the first verse, which kind of taps into some of the things that I just shared for holding on. Whoever knew following callings could make you a target. Spiritual warfare so common, this light against darkness. At times I was losing influence by pain and confusion, probably criticized for things I'm about to explain in this music. When you know your identity, you don't fight for acceptance. But if you're not careful, waited, the world can turn to depression. Hard place to live in, right between reality and vision. This the place where hope will die if dreams never come to fruition. Vision seem far away, reality causing friction, fighting suicidal thoughts daily, feeling tempted to end it, wanting freedom, being in that place, becoming the norm. Spirit was torn, man, they only wanted me to perform. Couldn't see that I was bleeding from constantly fighting demons, awakened the battles, often steady searching for what meaning. I learned lessons from when life was the hardest. And if you hanging on by a thread, make sure that this the hem of his garment. I'm holding on. And I want to encourage you guys, whoever's watching this, that whatever process you are going through, you know, trust God, man, and trust the fact that wherever you are in that process, that you're not by yourself. You always have a very present help, even in times of trouble, man. So be encouraged and continue to trust the process, man.
Time to put away the games and let's beat the check. Bring glory to Jesus' name. You say beat it. much taken seen as the sovereign. Is the sovereign one to answer if we're repeating the problem? Greatness is the righteous sin, with power to defeat the problem. For without holiness, no man will ever see the Father. Selfish agenda. People are dying, tithing isn't provided to supply the fuel, but these destiny preachers are flying armed with head knowledge. Give ear to what I am describing. Chiropractors are needed, the body's out of alignment. So, try to put away the game, you say, bring glory to Jesus' name, you say, if you truly are unashamed, then let's be the Jesus will come in again. I can't hear you, I can't hear you. It's time to put away the game, then let's be the bring glory to Jesus' name, you say, Peter, if you truly are unashamed, then let's be the Jesus will come in again. Hey, why can't we be the light if we're operating in darkness, desiring titles and positions over church departments, completely disregarding the reason the church was started? So in these second begging for dollars became the target. Go and make disciples. We rather be viewed as idols. This more lucrative to misuse scriptures out of the Bible to our own advantage, taking the grace of the Lord for granted, carried away with uncertain. So we'll see understanding over underhanded bucket dancing. If we truly the church, why is the blood of so many lost souls upon our hands? Then when Christ return, won't be judging buildings with sequels. He coming to judge his church first, solely consistent of people. So time to put away the games and let's be the church. Bring glory to Jesus' name and let's be the church. If you truly are unashamed, then let's be the church. Jesus Christ coming again, let us do the work.
Acknowledging that God is great, for real. I'ma give you the real, no time to waste. God is great, living outside of time and space. Thinking of his greatness when my mind escapes. Amazing grace, simply telling you God is great. I'ma give you the real, no time to waste. God is great, living outside of time and space. Thinking of his greatness when my mind escapes. Amazing grace.